gentlemen, may I have your attention, please? The show starts in 3, 2, 1, go.
Good morning, CaneSport. It's April 21st, 2022. I'm Gary Ferman, the publisher of CaneSport.com, joined as always by our managing editor, Matt Shodell, as we discuss the news of the day. Presented as always by LifeWallet, where the time is now to take charge of your personal health. And Matt, the time was now for Mesa-door to at last pull the trigger and commit to the Miami Hurricanes. We've been anticipating this for really a few weeks now, and was waiting for the day that this would come. And last night he made his announcement that he'll be a Miami Hurricane. I think this is a guy that's got a great chance. I think he'll certainly be in the rotation, but he's going to amp up the competition. I think to start opposite who I think is going to be a definite starter is Mitchell Agood. And this guy's going to come in. He's going to compete with Jafari Harvey. He's going to come in and compete with Chance Williams. And as an extension, Cyrus Moss. And I think the defensive end room, I'm not going to call this an impact signing because that would be a stretch. But I think it did get better, Matt.
Yeah. Listen, they like we talked about yesterday, they're reshaping a roster that's just not what it should look like. And sometimes it's okay to take guys who aren't happy at other programs. This guy is pretty good, right? He had 8.5 tackles for loss last year, 4.5 sacks. He can get after the quarterback. I think he's really good, but will he come in and will pencil him in as a day one starter? Like he's not that. But the competition is very important on the defensive line. Miami's going to get back a couple of guys off injury. Chance Williams was out this spring, and then a tackle. Jared Harrison-Hunt will be back. Antonio Mulcher will be back at tackle. You get Mitchell Agood coming in, like you mentioned. Now this guy's coming in as a transfer. You got some young guys like Cyrus Moss and Thomas Davis look really good at end. You got Nigel Kelly at end, people have a really high expectations for. Jabari Ishmael will be back off injury. I mean, it's an embarrassment. Jafari Harvey, Chance Williams, those were the returning starters. So it's going to be really interesting to see what shakes out. There's just so many ends right now. I don't know how, I don't know if they're going to keep them all. I don't know if some of these guys transfer. I don't know, because if you add up the ends on the roster right now, I'm just doing it right now. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, if you include Lichtenstein, 9. 9 defensive ends. That's for 2 positions, right? So that's almost a 5 deep. So I don't know where you go from here. I think it's good that they have the competition. And I think the defensive line is so important. And Mario Cristobal knows defensive line, offensive line. It starts with that. It's not good enough. Got to fix it. So, yeah, I like the pickup. But, they're going to have to figure out some number things.
When you look at, this is now yet another defensive end transfer that they are taking. And I think they're sending a signal, Matt, that they feel they need to get better. They need to get better pass rushers in the program, need more of them. We spoke yesterday, I believe it was, about Cyrus Moss and how he's just not physically ready to be that kind of guy yet. And I think it's a signal to all the guys that are there that if you want to stay here, you better pick it up. And if you don't think you're ready to pick it up, then hit the transfer portal, because we're going to keep bringing in talent. And
right. Well, here's what's weird about it, right? So at some positions, offensive line, you can say, okay, this guy should transfer, that guy should transfer. What ends that I just said should transfer? None of them. None of them. They're all good enough. None of them are like amazing. That's the thing, right? There's no, there's no Jalen Phillips type defensive end, but like they're going to have 9 defensive ends on the roster in the fall. These guys aren't leaving after the spring. I don't think any of the guys I mentioned. So that's I can't remember the last time they had 9 defensive ends, 9 guys that play defensive end on a roster. It's a little mind-boggling to me, but Mario Cristobal is doing what he thinks he needs to do.
All right, so you're looking at the list. I could pull it up, obviously, but who are your top candidates to go to the transfer portal?
Well, that's what I'm saying. Thomas Davis, no. Maybe Jabari Ishmael, but the poor kid's a redshirt freshman whose father's a coach. So no.
His father's a coach, yeah.
Nigel Kelly isn't even here yet. Cyrus Moss obviously is a no. Jafari Harvey, why would he transfer? Chance Williams, why would he transfer? Returning, potential starter. He was hurt, but I mean, why would he transfer? Jacob Lichtenstein just got here and looks good. And then Mitchell Agood isn't going anywhere. And then obviously we just talked about Mesa-door. Like, that's 9 guys. That's 9 guys. Who transferred out of those 9 before, May 15th, before May 1st? None of them. I mean, you can have 9 defensive ends on the roster in the fall unless I don't know. Does Mario drop some of those guys? Like, who do you drop?
I mean, I don't know. I mean, before he did some good things in spring, I might have said Thomas Davis because he's undersized. I would have said the same. Yeah. Maybe he's a tackle, but Alan Hay would have been one I would have thrown out as a candidate to hit the transfer portal. I mean, somebody's going to have to hit the transfer portal more than likely. I mean, you're not playing 9 defensive ends next year. Now, I love the idea of redshirting Nigel Kelly. I love the idea, of redshirting Cyrus Moss. If that's the way it plays out, I have no issues with that whatsoever. But you're obviously not going to play more than 4, maybe 5 on the outside defensive ends. So we now have an interesting subplot to fall practice. First, we got to see who makes it to fall practice, and then see how the competition goes. But look, the bottom line is Mario Cristobal and this staff are going to keep making this roster better every chance that they get.
Right, and the point is, I don't think they're worrying about that's the whole point of this. They're not looking at numbers and saying, "Oh my gosh, we have 9 defensive ends." They're saying, "No, this guy's better than half of what we got, or he can be better than half what we got. So just take him." Like, that's what they're doing, and they're not, they're worried about sort of, getting things right and figure out the numbers later. Which is how a lot of coaching staffs have to do it almost, right? It's just that's the way it is this day and age.
Yep. All right, so Mesa-door headed to the Canes roster. That's some positive news to kick off today. And let's talk next a little bit about athletic director Dan Radakovich made himself available to the media yesterday and did a relatively extensive interview talking about a lot of different subjects, Matt. And I didn't think there was a ton of breaking ground in there. I mean, we've been talking for months about there's going to be new facilities, and he confirmed that there's going to be new facilities. People have been asking to see renderings. He confirmed that they're not ready to show the renderings yet because it's still a work in progress, and they're still figuring out what they want to put and where they want to put it on campus. Really, the most interesting thing to me that came out of that press session was what looks like a clear, I don't want to call it a statement because I wouldn't say he made a statement that was that strong, but it's kind of obvious that he's not totally on board with this concept of Alonzo Highsmith coming into the athletic department, which, we've been assuming is going to happen. I mean, I called it a done deal simply because I know that Alonzo's been planning to come to Miami after the draft. And, that was the word that we've been getting. And there's been nothing to contradict that. And to this day, there really isn't, except for the fact that when Dan Radakovich was asked about it in this press session, he used the words, "It's not imminent." Well, not imminent. The draft is next week, Matt. So it's left for us to try to figure out, what's going on here? From what I've been told from sources close to the situation, there's been no final decision that's been communicated anywhere along the lines. We've known that Mario wanted to bring Alonzo into the program, but from what we had heard, the plan was not for Alonzo to be a football employee. So Mario's not making the hire. Mario has carte blanche to hire anybody he wants in football for the most part. I mean, it's all getting rubber stamped. Like, he was given complete authority to run the football program and was told before he came here that the money would be in place for him to do what he felt he needed to do to get this football program running in the right direction. Well, now he's done that. He's made a bunch of hires. He's expanded staffing. And there hasn't been a lot of movement in the other direction. Like, there's still a lot of the staffers that worked for Manny Diaz in the program. So if I'm reading the tea leaves, Matt, like they need all this to sort itself out before they begin to make a move on Alonzo Highsmith, because they got to know what Alonzo Highsmith's job is, and they have to make sure if they do it, that it's clearly defined, and they can't get themselves into another situation with a high-paid, high-profile alumnus like they did say with like Ed Reed, and not have clear definition on exactly what he's supposed to do.
I mean, Dan Radakovich is an athletic director. He's been an athletic director for a long time. And being an athletic director means you're a politician. If I asked you or somebody, some member of the media asked you, Gary, why is Good Morning CaneSport only audio now? Are you going to tell them the truth that both of us are so ugly we're sick of looking at each other on the screen? Or are you going to tell them, oh, I'm out of pocket. Unfortunately, my what have you been telling people? your home system is
No, I told them that we're not in studio, and
there you go. We're out of studio. We're out of studio.
And with to guarantee quality video.
Yeah. See,
so therefore we're doing audio only for a few days.
Right. That's the answer Dan Radakovich gave when asked about Alonzo Highsmith. He gave no answer. Imminent means nothing. Imminent can mean a month. Imminent can mean a year if you're talking about something that normally takes 10 years. It's not a word that has a definition of tomorrow, 3 days, 7 days, or even a year, right? There's going to be imminent flooding from the rise, if you believe in actual nature and the rise in the level of the water out there. Imminent, in that case,
means 20 years. Matt.
Yeah, sea level rise, 20 to 50 years. It's imminent. So anyway, it's imminent in the history of the world. 20 years is pretty quick. So my point is, what did you expect them to say? Yeah, we're going to hire Alonzo at some point. I don't know. We haven't figured it out yet. We're going to work on the contract at some point. We got other stuff we got to do first. No, he's going to say nothing imminent. So it means nothing to me. Maybe it'll happen. Maybe it won't. What he said means absolutely nothing to me.
All right, here is what he said. Dan Radakovich says, he was one of the first people to call me once I accepted this job. I've known Alonzo for a long time. Mario has as well. Alonzo has a wonderful job right now and is living out in Seattle. What the future holds, I really can't predict. Well, he could predict it if he wanted to predict it.
He doesn't want to predict it.
If his prediction was Alonzo's joining the athletic department in 2 weeks, he can make that happen. Alonzo,
you think an AD is going to say that before it's signed and they can send out the release themselves, Gary? Come on.
Well, maybe not, but I know this. Alonzo's been all in for 2 years now, almost. So, getting Alonzo to start working is not going to be a difficult thing. From everything I've been told, Alonzo has been planning to do this, okay? So then he says, Alonzo is a Hurricane through and through, and if somewhere down into the future that could work out, we certainly would look to try to do something like that. Okay, now he's coming back in the other direction, and he's showing that he likes the idea because he's saying we certainly would look to try to do something like that. Matt, he says, but I couldn't tell you that by any stretch of the imagination it's imminent. This is me reading the tea leaves. They are not ready to define what that job would be. And until they are ready to define what that job would be, they are not bringing in Alonzo Highsmith at a $400,000 a year salary or $500,000, whatever it is right now. He makes a lot of money with the Seattle Seahawks. They're just not going to do that. And you know what? I see a lot of value for Alonzo in the football program. Everybody knows about that. I was a big proponent of it when it came up with Manny Diaz a year and a half ago, when Manny wouldn't do it. But I can understand the fact that you want his job to be clearly defined and you don't want him butting heads with people that are in the football office. And you can't really start taking a look at Alonzo until you finalize who's going to be in and who's going to be out in football. And I imagine that that's a process that's going to be taking place here in the next month or two or, whatever. So that's me reading the tea leaves.
Listen, there's only one way that Dan Radakovich was going to say that Alonzo Highsmith was being hired, and that's if Sports Information football director Cam Gorby was going to change his name to Alonzo Highsmith legally. And then he'd say, okay, we're going to hire Alonzo Highsmith, because there's no other way he was going to say that. Again, the whole thing you read is meaningless. Oh, Alonzo's a good friend of mine. Alonzo called me and thanked me. Alonzo lives in Seattle. I mean, he could have said Alonzo was born in this year. He has this many children. His son played for the Hurricanes. He could have said a million different things. He basically just read off a bio and then said nothing's imminent. I mean, there's no tea leaves to read. He said nothing that we didn't know.
Well, I'm trying to read tea leaves because I've been under the assumption that Alonso was coming in imminently now.
And
It's been a few months wait. The draft is next week. Well, the draft is next week. His obligations to the Seattle Seahawks after next week are not, he has fulfilled his obligations to the Seahawks. It's the perfect time for him to make a move if he's going to make a move.
Right.
We'll see what happens. I got to do.
Look, I just looked up the definition of imminent. Okay, the definition of imminent is it says about to happen unless used by an athletic director, in which case it means nothing. That's the actual definition. And this was an athletic director who said it, so it means nothing.
All right. Well, the one thing I do know is Dan Radakovich knows what he's doing. So if I'm reading the tea leaves right, you can't argue with it. I mean, as much as any of us would want to see Alonso in the building, you can't argue with, they got themselves in a little bit of a pickle because they hired Ed Reed to be chief of staff, but he's not really a chief of staff. And it's not clearly defined what he's actually supposed to do. So, Mario's got to sort that out. That's one of many things he has to sort out. He has to sit down with Ed Reed and clearly define what Ed Reed's supposed to do. But the last thing they want to do is bring another former player into the mix, especially at high salary, without being able to clearly define what he's going to do. All right. So, look, I mean, so Dan Radakovich talked about a lot of things, most of which we've already told you. The SoFer indoor practice facility is going to be expanded. Right now I think it's 80 yards. It's going to go to 120. It's only like a 70-yard field. They want it to be a regulation football field. So that building will be expanded as part of the overall renovation of football facilities at Miami. Now,
by the way, what genius, Blake James, decided to build a 70-yard field in the first place? I mean, a football field's 100 yards, right?
I can't believe Mark Rick signed off on it.
Bizarre.
Yeah, I think as much as like the 70-yard field was workable for them,
they built an emergency in case of lightning. We can practice somewhere other than the wellness center field. It was not a great idea. And listen, it's great they built it. Everyone was super excited. It's better than nothing, right? But if you're going to do it,
it's a very nice building.
But
I'm guessing that it's the only 70-yard indoor practice facility in the country. I mean, most and I think that it's seen as that's not a good optic, so they're going to expand it as part of the overall plan. Now,
this is part of the problem Miami's had for the last few years, right? They play hard for the first 70 yards, and in the last 30 yards, they just don't even try because they think they've already made it to the end zone. That's been the problem. No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah. Hey, look, as long as they don't take Carol Sofer's name off of it, they can do whatever they want. They better leave Carol Sofer's name on it. Now, and I don't care who pays the bill for the extra 30 yards. All right. Football facilities. Clearly, they're working on it. They're trying to figure out what they want to do. I've heard two scenarios. They're going to build a major football complex. Okay, it's from what I understand, it's going to go in one or two places. It's either going to go where the existing track is now, so that there's frontage to Hurricane Drive out there. That's one concept. The other concept is for it to go on the east side of the practice fields right now. There's a parking lot there at the moment, and they could build a football facility there. And they just got to figure out what to do. There's like a creek behind the fence of the practice field that separates the practice field from the other, the rest of the university. There's like a little creek there. I don't know if they could fill that creek. I don't know if they got to build a bridge over that creek. I'm not sure what the final plan would be. But from what I get, those are the two options right now for a new football complex that will be built. There's no doubt about it. They're having it planned out right now. They're starting to raise money for it, and it's going to get done. And my guess is the timeline is 2 years because they're presently building a new football locker room to bring the football locker room up to quality standards to carry them through the next 2 years. That was part of the deal, when Mario came, that they would take care of that and get that up to speed. And they're fulfilling, I guess, everything they promised. I mean, that's part of it. So that's costing several million. It's essentially throwing the money kind of away, but at least it gives Miami a representative locker room for the next couple of years, so that recruiting is not stunted in any way. So he talked about that a little bit, and basically gave indication that he's going to renew all the coaches. It doesn't look like he's going to fire anybody because they're all doing so well right now. He talked about football ticket sales supposedly are on the rise, but didn't give any figures. So from a breaking news standpoint, there wasn't a ton to that interview, Matt, but it was nice to hear from Dan and get a little update.
Yeah, I mean, never bad in the dull days after spring practice to talk to the AD. It was great timing.
All right, before we move on, talk a little bit about recruiting. Let's take a moment to hear from our friends at Life Wallet.
I will be your shield in the fiercest battle. I'll defend you.
Yeah.
Hey, my name is Cleveland Reed, and I play offensive line, and my job is to protect. I protect my family with Life Wallet. How about you?
Of course I got Life Wallet. It's the best way to protect my family.
Long as we go together, we'll die whenever. Be a light, couldn't let the darkness try you ever. Truth in my word, you I lie to never.
To protect you and your family, get Life Wallet now.
Life Wallet. Saving time, saving lives.
All right, we got a few recruiting stories on the website today for you guys to sink your teeth into, in addition to the commit story on Mesa-door. The first is a visit with Texas four-star defensive end, Ashton Porter. He made the trip to Miami with his father over the weekend, had a great time like all these recruits seem to have, and he will be making a return visit back for an official visit at some point here in the future. So that's good news on Ashton Porter. There was another four-star defensive lineman by the name of Duran Reed who visited this month, and he'll be back in June for his official visit. So it's going to be a very busy summer in Coral Gables, no doubt about it. And then we also have an update on offensive lineman Peyton Kirkland, one of the top offensive linemen in the country, who also had a 2-day Miami visit and had a phenomenal time and gave a great review on that. So, Matt, big guys up front, a lot of them being recruited, a lot of them passing through campus, continuation of an escalation in the quality and level of recruiting under Mario Cristobal.
Yeah, I mean, Peyton Kirkland gave a great example of what the staff does. He was here 10 a.m. Monday until 8 p.m., and then Tuesday from 8:30 until 2 p.m. he was there with his mom. And he said every single second that he was there, Coach Mario Cristobal and Alex Mirabal were by his side, literally. I did not ask him about bathroom breaks. I assume nobody went to the bathroom during those hours, but he was with them every second. They were at his side every second, which showed him how important he is to Miami. And I don't think other coaching staffs do that, right? So, so that makes Miami stand out. They really have done an amazing job of making all, there have been so many recruits that have visited. Somehow they all feel they get the personal attention and feel the love and, all this other stuff. It's really pretty remarkable.
Peyton Kirkland is a massive human being. I had a chance to see him at a camp earlier this year. And wow, number one, he's a nice kid, which is always a good thing, but very impressive looking prospect and very, very, very big. And it's exactly what Mario and Alex Mirabal, the offensive line coach, are looking to do, make the offensive line bigger, more physical. This is a high priority recruit. There's a reason why they spent every single second with him on his visit. And it sounds like Miami's doing very, very well with Kirkland. They're going to have to fight off Florida. This is not a done deal by any stretch of the imagination. It's going to be interesting. But at least it does sound like they're doing very well. And that's obviously a positive. All right. And lastly, today, we have an update on the basketball team with Jim Larinaga. Again, the master of the reshaping of his roster. He did it brilliantly last year, emerged with a team that went to the Elite Eight. Now he's working on it again. They got several transfers that they're working on. We're waiting on decisions on those kids. And they've got a good freshman class coming in. So we update everything that's going on with men's basketball right now also this morning. All right, so that's going to do it for today for Good Morning CaneSport. We thank you once again for joining us. For Matt Shodell, I'm Gary Ferman. We wish everybody a great day, and we'll see you tomorrow.